Okay, hey everyone, you're so welcome to this video. This is another interview video. It's been a minute since I did an interview video on this channel, and I'm so excited to bring you LaTrice. Now, before I even introduce the amazingness that LaTrice is, let me just talk to you about how we met. We met via YouTube. So for those of you that don't know, I have another YouTube channel, Gene Entre Writes, and this is where I share all the goodness about making money with your writing. And this is way, maybe 5 years ago that I started this channel, and LaTrice found me way back then when I was still trying to figure out my feet in this online world. So so we go way back, and I'm really appreciative that she's here. She's really been supportive of my own journey, and I'm so glad that I get to support some of her journey right now. So the reason why I really wanted to talk to LaTrice is because LaTrice is a career coach for ambitious women of color and a personal brand strategist. And she specializes in helping people write resumes that help them increase their salary or to get into the coveted six-figure job range. So really, she is really good at coaching people to get to this level. And she's not just writing resumes and putting them out there for people, like all these resumes that are all cooked up to just make you look good. She's actually coaching people through the process, through how they themselves can change and how they themselves can position themselves to be the best person for that position. So I know a lot of us on here, we're going through grad school or we're done with grad school and we're looking for that up-level job. We're looking to move into that position that's like, that pays you well, right? And so I really wanted LaTrice to come on here and talk about a little bit of what she tells her coaching clients, right? You would pay her for this information. So I'm so glad she's here. And just give us some tips that you can start applying right now to start putting together a resume that will land you that six-figure job, and also how you yourself from the inside out can be that person that HR wants to hire. So welcome, LaTrice.
Thank you. That was an amazing introduction. So thank you so very much. I love that. I'm so happy to be here. And I always tell people a resume is just a tool, right? The real transformation happens from inside. So when you start to think of it like that, it becomes easier. So just a couple of tips right off the bat. Don't write your resume when you're angry or upset, which is what we tend to do. Like, I'm tired of this, I've been searching, da, 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 da. If you have a resume written, don't edit your resume when you are feeling bad, when you are angry or upset. It will reflect in your resume, right? Just some things like, hey, don't do this. Don't. Because we're tempted, we get frustrated, we want to take some sort of action, right? And the whole thought is like action will create our results, when really it's our thoughts, it's our feelings that are going to dictate our results. So if you're feeling frustrated, angry, the first thing, don't write your resume. If you want to write, just free write, journal something, get it out. One thing that I always recommend with people when they are getting started and they're like, I just don't know where to start. Or even with PhDs, when you're used to doing this CV, very contrived, it's, make it however long, 12 pages, 26 pages. And now someone's like, I need a 2-page resume, max 3 pages, but it better be interesting, right? You're like, where do I start? One of the things I first start is saying, write down 25 reasons why you are great for this job, why this would be a mutually beneficial position for both you and the company. Start there. 25 reasons why. If you start with the 25 reasons why, then you go to write your resume, you already have this. Instead, we want to do the opposite. We want to either just start writing our resume when we're upset or frustrated, or the gurus tell us to go look at the job ad and write your resume that way. No, because this still needs to reflect you. right? And it needs to be accomplishment focused, and it needs to be a part of your brand. So if you start with you, your resume will reflect you. I'm not saying don't tailor it to the job ad at the end, but you at least should have an idea of like, this is what I want to do, this is what I bring to the table, here are 25 reasons why. Start with that.
Mm.
I had someone do this. She was like, she's stuck. She asked for a raise. Her job wouldn't give it to her. She was like, I should be making more money. Like all of these things. And she was like, I just need to update my resume. So I said, well, with what? Like, what are you going to update it with? Right? And she was like, I'm just going to update it. I said, do this. I know you're going to think it's counterintuitive. I used to tell people do thought work. They hated that. So write the 25 reasons why. She did it. I said, then look at your resume, put those things on your resume. She did it. The first job she applied to, she got a call back. She applied to another job on her lunch break for internally. She said, LaTrice, by the time her lunch break was over, they had already contacted her for an interview.
Mm. Mm. I like that. I like that a lot because, like you just said, right? A lot of the time when we want to get a new job, when we want to get a new position, yes, we are frustrated. We are unhappy with the current job we're in. But I also like something that you pulled in here is going from that transition of having a 10-page, 12-page, 20-page CV, depending on where you are in your career as an academic, to a one-pager is super difficult. But I love this idea of write 25 things about yourself, and that makes you, and that sounds so counterintuitive to like, no, I'm looking for a job. Like, why do I need to be doing all this woo stuff? But I really do think that this is important. And, just to chip in here, when I personally was looking for, and I don't know what I'm doing now, but anyway, when I was looking for my current position now as a writer, when I really wanted to know, I really knew I wanted to go into science and medical writing. One of the things that I started doing maybe a year and a half to 2 years prior was actually begin thinking, why do I want to be in this position, and what would that dream position look like? And yeah, sometimes you can't figure it all out together in your mind, but you begin to put yourself in positions that help you get that position. Anyway, so could you elaborate on that a little bit? How does writing about yourself actually help you write a better resume?
Well, one, you can take what you're going to do with it after you have it is take that information and actually put it on your resume. You can actually take that information and use it on LinkedIn. You can use it when you're in an interview, because usually when we are writing our resume, it is constricted. It's a template. It's formatted. So therefore, our thinking is constricted. It's templated. It's formatted. Where when you're free writing, just, okay, what are these 25 amazing things about you? Well, 25 reasons a company would be happy to have you. 25 reasons you're going to be amazing in, this ideal job or whatever. And you're just free writing. And you're going to be able to come up with things you haven't thought about in years. Where when you're going through a template, you're like, what did I do in this job? What did I do here? What research did I do? Right? It's a little more restricting. Let your mind go. You're going to be like, oh my God, I did do that. And 25 will force you, because most people have a hard time coming up with 5 things, right? Or it's all research, meaning it's not really about you, it's about the data or something like that. Let's make this about you. I'm not saying don't put that other stuff, but you need you, especially if you're trying to get out of academia or do something different with your PhD. It's going to be more about you and the impact you can make on a company, and what that research means for a company.
Mm.
But
So good. Yeah, it's really good. So now that you're saying this, one of the things that come to mind, right, when I started putting myself in a position and a mindset of I want to be a science and medical writer, maybe 2 years before I actually landed a job as a science and medical writer. So I had been freelance writing for a while. And I remember when I was applying for my current position, which I really can honestly say is a dream job, one of the things that I remember doing was I really did think about this, and I don't think I even consulted you on this. So I didn't even know that this is what I was doing. But I was like, why would they want to have me? And one of the biggest reasons they would want to have me is because I had 5 years of writing experience, writing blogs, writing social media content. I had that experience. And more than that, I was passionate about it. I loved it and I had been successful at it. And so really highlighting those things on my resume, I got a call the same day saying, "Hey, we love your resume." So I'm totally going to vouch for that. So once you've written these things, or you've recognized these things about yourself, you are beginning to incorporate that, putting that onto your resume. How does an academic take that 10-page, 12-page CV, because I have one of those, and then boil it down to like 1 page?
Okay. One, don't try to get it down to one.
Hmm.
What I recommend is like, first, just try to get it down to 5, because it is a hard shift from 12 to 2. Okay, just mentally, and this is what I've seen, just mentally, 12 to 2 is just a hard shift. You're gonna be like, I can't do it, I can't do it. But if I say, can you get 12 pages down to like 6 pages? Let's start in half first. Now I know we're gonna get it down to 2, but that's gonna scare the crap out of them. If I say we're gonna get it down to 2. So I'll start with, let me just cut this in half. Right? And then you can ask yourself some questions. Is this relevant to the position? Is this relevant about me? Is it timely? Because traditionally, I've seen CVs go all the way back to the 80s. The 80s. Right?
Yeah.
The 80s. And having some ground rules. How can you condense? So sometimes people are like, I really want to show this, or even the 90s who are like, I want to show where I started. What does you waitressing have to do with where you are now? Like, granted, can you put that in a statement somewhere else? So start with that. Usually my first thing is like, what are some of these really, really old things? Can they be removed? Right? All right. So let's say now you got it down to 6 pages, and now we're in the 90s or the 2000s or something, right? All
Mm-hmm.
right, is it relevant? Is it relevant? Is it timely? Does this represent where I want to go in my career? Because sometimes we think a CV, a resume should have every single thing listed on there. Think of your resume as a marketing tool, not a book of everything you've done in your career, life, and education. That is the biggest shift. It is a marketing tool to market you in your career for where you want to go. It is not a biography. It is not. So sometimes you got to keep thinking that, like, is this positioning me for where I want to go? If it's not, just get rid of it. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. What I even tell people is like, hey, keep the original if you like. Keep this. We can always add more stuff. Don't tell yourself this is permanent, gone forever. Because then people are like, well, what if I find a job that says this? I'm going to need to put it back on there. Then put it back on there. But right now, we're going to take it off, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you find yourself getting stuck, honestly, go to someone who you know will be, I call it brutal with the cuts. Brutal with the cuts. Now, I'm not saying sometimes they'll be like, oh, go to like your grandmother. I'm not saying go to your grandmother or something like that. But if you have a friend, a colleague who's a professional, run it by them. Ask, be like, hey, take the highlighter, go, take the red pen, and just, if you're finding it really, really difficult, tell somebody these are the type of jobs I'm going for. This is where I want to see my career. Does this look right? Because people can tell you their instinct really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if somebody takes something off, you can always add it back on. But if you need that help, before I see somebody get stuck, and I've had people tell me, I've spent weeks cutting down on my resume. I could have cut this resume in 2 hours. I could have cut this CV in 2 hours, right? Because I'm not emotionally attached to anything on there.
Mm.
People are usually emotionally attached, creating stories about, no, I got to tell them when I had spoke at this conference, 5 years ago. well, you spoke on something you're not even trying to do anymore. So what was,
Right.
how are you showing that I'm a public speaker? Okay, well, put in under expertise, public speaker or something like that. You don't need to put this.
You're so right. And I think you said something in there that is so crucial. Don't be emotionally married to what you've done in the past. What you've done in the past is great, and we acknowledge that and we congratulate you on that. But the truth is, not everything can come into the future with you, right? Just like I'm sure that they're, from growing from childhood to adulthood, their toys, their habits, their people, even friendships that maybe you've had to leave behind. And similarly, as you move into this new phase of life, leaving behind some of that stuff off your resume is important. I remember, as you're saying this, I remember, I have a bachelor's degree in nursing, and I remember I had this amazing nurse externship when I was a student. And I enjoyed it. And most of the time when it was on my resume, people loved it. But then I remember when I was applying for, again, this current job that I have as a science writer, I was like, this serves no purpose. It's great that I had that experience. It's great because you're going to see that I have nursing experience, and that brings something to my science writer role. But to be
Yeah.
honest, it's no longer less necessary. So I remember cutting that. I remember cutting my experience as a nurse, even though I ended up talking about it in my interviews. And because it will, if it's in your educational profile, it's going to come up, so give yourself permission. I totally agree with you, LaTrice. Like, give yourself permission to leave certain things in the past so that you can shorten that resume for sure. You're going to say something.
No, and that's what people don't get. They think it's sorry, they think it's like gone forever. Like, oh my God, it's not on my resume. I'm like, but you can talk about it. Actually, you now LinkedIn, you can put all of that on LinkedIn. Like so it's not gone forever. It didn't disappear because we cut it from your resume. So and so don't be emotionally married to it being on your resume. It can be wherever you want it to be. It can live wherever you want it to live. And what I even tell people, if it makes you feel better, have like what I call like an ongoing document, right? Like your resume, like, and you can pick different pieces from it that you need. Now, I don't recommend this right away because you're going to be tempted to put everything back on there. But let's say now you're going for a job that's involving writing for nursing or something like that. Then maybe you want to put one line. You don't want it to take up too much real estate on your resume, but maybe that would be something, right? So it's not gone forever, but you can't put everything on there that's not in the direction of where you want to go. And if you can't see that, if it's taking you, I say more than 2 days, more than a weekend, have somebody else do it. A friend will easily cut it for you. They went bam, bam, bam. Somebody who's like, and they will also help you remember what you forgot to put on there. Because that's what I'll see is that it's all of this stuff that isn't relevant. And then people, I get on the phone, especially women, they start telling me stories of impact that they made, money that they solved, things they've done with the research. And I'm like, well, where is that on here? And they're like, oh, I didn't think it was important. I didn't think it was relevant. But yet you got stuff from like 6 years ago on there that have no relevancy, but something you did 2 years ago. Right? That has this huge impact on the world. You don't have it on there.
Yeah, these are such great tips. So I love what we talked about so far. Now I want to move a little bit. So now we talked about the resume, right? Like, think about things that are absolutely relevant. First of all, think about yourself and what you bring to the role, amazing things you bring to the role. And then think about the experience that actually fits. Not everything will fit, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. So those tips are so great. So now, LaTrice, moving on from your resume, right? You've written that resume. Let's say you've done these things. You're not upset when you're writing this resume. You've free written. You've come up with ideas so that you can really sell yourself as that individual that company wants to hire, and you really are curating. And one of the things that I got from what you were saying is really curating your experience, that towards the job. I love it. So then the personal branding side of things, right? How do PhDs begin to build a personal brand? So now you've written the resume, but how do we use a resume to build a personal brand?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So your personal brand is so much bigger than your resume. Your personal brand is who you are at your core. Like the name of my company is Talent Stays because the talent stays within you. So many times we think our gifts and talents are tied to a position or a company or our education or a title. But when you look at it as it is me, how I show up, what I do with my gifts, how I use my education, right? When you look at it like that, then you have a different perspective. Then it's so much bigger than this resume, right? Then you can clearly understand I don't need to write everything on the resume because when I show up and tell my story, they're going to also see how amazing I am. Right. So, so let's start there. Personal branding is so much bigger than everything. Right. I always think of like, you know, the resume is the tool. Like you want to build your house, the resume is a hammer, right? The personal branding, the knowing your gifts, your transformation, your dream house. That's what you want. Right? Not saying, that hammer isn't going to help, but knowing how many bedrooms you want in your dream house, having the blueprint, having the house, that's going to help. That's what's going to get you that transformation, right? So one, with your personal brand, think about what do you want to be known for? And so many times my PhDs, they think the PhD is the end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough because then people have different perspectives on PhDs. Some people are like, oh, okay, well, you're really smart, or you're only book smart, or, it's all these different perceptions. So you have to clarify that for them. What do you want to be known for? Let me tell you this. I've also seen PhDs who won't put PhD behind their name. And all of these rules, and they'll be like, well, I heard you're not supposed to put it if you're not this, or if I have a PhD in education, I'm not like, who said this? This is, how do you see yourself? You've earned that. You better put that behind your name and be proud. Like, you better go for yourself. Now, if you don't, if you're like, hey, I have this, but that's not the core of my brand, don't put it. Think about this is why your brand and what you want to be known for is so important. If you're not putting your PhD behind your name because of some rule that you've heard that doesn't serve you, that doesn't make sense. But if you're like, I'm not going to put the PhD behind my name because right now, that's not how I want to represent myself. I want to represent myself some other way. I want to be known for something else. That's fine too. Think about your reasons. I'm always a fan of your credentials, you earned them. You can put it everywhere. Okay, put it everywhere. But think about you and what you want to be known for. And there shouldn't be any shame about any part of you or how you got it. Some people tell me like, oh, it took me so long, but you got it. That's part of your story. That's part of your journey. That's part of what makes you you. I've seen PhDs who are like, I had to work full time, so it took me 10 years. Or some people are like, I didn't work at all. And they feel shame. I don't have real work experience. Like, no, you're amazing. Do you know how many people don't have PhDs? Like,
it's amazing how we don't realize how rare it is, because when you're around a lot of, like, you're in an academic institution for a really long time and you're surrounded by PhDs, you tend to think everybody has a PhD, when the reality is that maybe the world's population, if we took that all together, it's 2% of people that have, I think even less than that have PhD. So you're in a very, very rare class of people. And I think you should be proud of that, like LaTrice is saying. And I agree with you, LaTrice, that it's important. Again, I think one of the things that the exercise you shared at the beginning, write down 25 things about yourself. One of the things that thing serves is also being able to tell your unique story. Personally, I love LinkedIn as a platform to tell my unique story. I love LinkedIn as a place where I go to stand out, because yes, there's 2% of us that have PhDs, but then that 2% among 7 billion people, does translate to a few million people, right? So how are you going to stand out of those few million people? The way you're going to stand out is by using your voice. And I found it to be so, so true for my own, career journey. And I find that most people that do this tend to find themselves in places where they were like, what? This is what I remember a story of a girl. She didn't even have a PhD. She has a bachelor's degree, and she had finished her college degree, and I think she was struggling to find a job, and she had been quiet. She had been, writing, putting out the resumes like most of us do, just pushing out resumes everywhere, right? Until one day she decided to make a post on LinkedIn, and she just said, hey, it would be awesome if somebody at Microsoft would give me a job. Like, it sounded like a joke. Next thing she knew, she was in interviews with Microsoft, and now she is a global marketing lead at Microsoft.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's
She's a Black girl, right? I saw that.
Yeah, and she's amazing.
I saw her because she speaks now. Does she do? She speaks. Yes.
She speaks quite a bit. And what did she do? She just told her unique story on LinkedIn, and I've watched her move from one position, like an entry level position at Microsoft, into a marketing lead position, which would have taken her years to get to. It takes people decades to get to that kind of position, and she was able to accelerate that because she uses her voice. And so this stuff we're talking about really does work, where you tell your story so that you stand out. Talk about things. You don't have to talk about what everybody's talking about. Talk about the things that define you. And I saw this on LinkedIn yesterday, that LinkedIn now allows you to have a creator account, and you can display the topics you talk about on your profile.
Oh, I gotta look that up myself.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think I did it on my mobile device, so I don't know. I have to check and see if it's on my desktop. But absolutely. I was on my phone on LinkedIn, because it's one of my favorite platforms, and right there they said you can switch. I forgot whether I could switch it to a creator account or something. But essentially, you can select the topics that you regularly talk about on your LinkedIn page. And I think what LinkedIn is trying to do is trying to also help you get found for those topics. Right? So imagine that a CEO or an HR person is looking for somebody that works in science, or that talks about science communication or something. And I talk about that quite a bit. They're going to find me, and they're going to try to offer me a job. Right?
Yep.
So, and now I have roles coming to me now versus me chasing after those roles. That's the other thing about this is, if you do these things LaTrice is saying, and which we're sharing on you on this episode, you will find that now jobs begin to chase you down.
Yes.
Other way
around. This is one of the key things that I teach my clients is attraction. And here's the thing, people don't want to talk about it. People are just like resume. That is a tool. How are you going to use the tool to get what you want? That is key. Now, the resume is important. That is typically a company's first introduction to you on paper. Okay? Here's the key though. If they can be introduced to you another way, like seeing your content first, seeing a video, hearing about you. Let's not forget about referrals and word of mouth too. This is why your brand is so important, and knowing what you want to be known for, because you can give people the words to describe you. Don't let, that's what I said. People always have assumptions. If somebody sees PhD, this was the reason someone was like, I'm going to take my PhD off my resume because I think people are assuming things about me. Well, if you know your brand and you're clear on your brand on your resume, they won't have to assume. You're going to have a statement clear as day about who you are and what you represent and what you want to be known for. And most of all, the impact you can make on a company.
This is great, because essentially what you're saying is that you get to be, you have the power to educate other people on how they view you. And I love that, because that's absolutely true. You have the power.
Yes. One thing, this is what my whole brand is about, is honestly breaking the rules. If you are a PhD and you don't want to go into academia, you're essentially breaking the rules. To be successful in it, you got to break some of these old rules that have been recycled decades after decades, that probably your professor told you, your advisor told you. And if you don't want to be on the same path they are, break some of those rules. Do things differently. Show up as who you are. You're going to attract so many different opportunities. You're going to blow your own freaking mind. And here's the thing I found. You could choose 2 or 3 tips that we're doing and just be consistent with them, and you will get amazing results. Because sometimes you're like, I had to do everything, I'm going to be overwhelmed. Everything that we're talking about, choose 1 to 2 things that resonate the most with you. Take the next 90 days and do those exceptionally well, and just be open and see what happens.
Absolutely. This is so fantastic. So thank you so much, LaTrice. You've dropped a lot of gems, and I love that you have brought to us, share who you are. Ultimately, how you bring value to the company is what most companies are looking for. And when you do this, you're more likely to win. Thank you so much, LaTrice. It was with this conversation, you know me, this conversation could go on, but at some point we have to cut it short. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. We really appreciate the tips. And hey, if you're watching this and you've watched till this point, let me know in the comments below if this video was helpful to you. How are you going to be tweaking your resume based on this video? Let us know in the comments below.